It was the song that made Radiohead famous and the one they grew to hate. Creep was raw, emotional, and almost never released, but once the world heard it, there was no turning back. Hello and welcome back to the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast with your host, Mr. Laz Michaelides, and on the screen opposite me, Mr. Felipe Amarin. How you doing, bro?
Doing great, man. And you?
Yep, all good, thanks. All good here. How are things in London? All good?
You know, it's not the best weather, but getting there.
Up and down, yeah, up and down. It was good because we saw each other a few weeks ago, didn't we? Funnily enough, the song we're talking about today factors into one of the places I took you to visit. So, yes, today we are talking about the famous Creep song. So we'll just start with a few short details of the song. So the song was released the 21st of September 1992, recorded the same year at the Chipping Norton Studios in Oxfordshire, England, which is where I took you and your wife there a few weeks ago. The genre is alt rock and it clocks in at just under 4 minutes long, released on the Parlophone and Capitol label, and it was written and composed by Radiohead, Albert Hammond and Mike Hazelwood as of now, which we'll get to in a bit.
Not originally, apparently.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, lyrics were written by Tom Yorke and produced by Sean Slade and Paul Caldery. So I think the first thing to acknowledge with this song is how lucky we are to have it, because we really couldn't have. It was an accidental hit, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't like the song at first, and the label didn't like it. It's a weird thing, because I think Radiohead started in 1985, right? And they went to college, and the band split up, and they got together. So they're really young, and they put the first EP out. They had another name. I think the name of the band was On a Friday.
Yeah, it's a weird name.
Which was the day they used to rehearse. And the label said, that's a crap name. We've got to change that. So they picked the song name by the Talking Heads, isn't it? And they used Radiohead as the name of the band. So I think they didn't even like their own name at the point. Yeah. So, and then they put the EP out, and the choice for single, I think, was Creep. I mean, it didn't quite make it, and the label didn't like it. They didn't like it. The audience didn't like it in the UK at first.
Well, yeah, I heard this song came about because they were playing it. They were in a studio session, ready to record, and they played it as a warm-up song. And they don't even like it. But I mean, you said the label didn't like it. I read that the label are the ones that heard it. I mean, again, maybe they didn't like it, or maybe it wasn't the label. Maybe I've misread. But someone in that session heard it and said, "You guys have got to run with this because this is a good song." And that's what they did, as you said. You know, sort of they recorded the song. Everyone was sort of keen to put it out in terms of it being the main single, and it completely flopped in the UK on its release. So the next question is, how did it get so famous? Well, American radio stations, American college radio stations all across the country gave it such a heavy rotation, and I think I can understand why, which is where we're going to move to in the next part of the show. So this song, it kind of has a few different influences, doesn't it? We kind of sits in the nice alt rock thing, but I hear out and out grunge in it, man. And that's why I think it was a success in the USA. Because look what was going on there at the same time. You got Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Soundgarden. You know, the first wave of grunge had been completed from 91 all the way through to 93, and these bands were now surging. And I think you listen to Creep and I think you hear a proper grungy song, and add to that the lyrics of the song and how kind of, you know, it really did speak the same language as grunge. It had disaffection, self-loathing, the social anxiety, and I feel like this was kind of the UK's own little grunge anthem.
Makes sense. It makes sense because they're not like, again, they would be heavily associated with Britpop, right? But like, they're so far from a traditional pop, sound because they're very experimental. There's lots of noises in the songs, and they're not so radio friendly, you know, in a way. So it's weird to call them a pop band or to associate them with Britpop. In a way. So I never thought of it, but they closer to grunge than they are to pop music. And I can roll with that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
They're as a band, I mean, I'm quite a big fan of Radiohead, and we are scheduled to do one of their albums in the next couple of months. they're very unusual, and the Britpop label that is slapped on them, I really think it only sort of suits them for their second album, which might be the one that we do in a few months, called The Bends, and that really does exude a bit of Britpop. But as you said, everything after that is so far away from what we know of Britpop, including Blur, Oasis, those kind of bands. Yeah. And I just, we're going to talk about how much they hated the song later, but I think it's just interesting. I was reading that the band didn't expect Creep to define them. They didn't want it to define them either. And the more I listen to other music that they've released, the more I wonder if they've just been like, right, how can we distance ourselves from Creep even more? Because each album has a different sort of sound and a different one that's sort of that it moves further away. They really play with electronics, with ambiences, with production, with atmosphere and mood. And they still, I think it's fair to call them a rock band, even though they are so heavily produced. There's loads of electronic stuff. But yeah, what do you think?
I remember listening to the album OK Computer when it came about.
Yeah, and, that's the famous one, isn't it?
It's got nothing to do with this song, isn't it, in a way? And it's yeah, I get it that they try to distance themselves from the song, but like it's a curse and a blessing at the same time. What I sometimes don't get about artists is like you have a song that made you a millionaire. Yeah. Could you just show a little bit of affection for that song?
Affection for the song,
appreciation for the public. But it's interesting. No, I get it. I found an interview with them that when the interviewer asks about what's the meaning of Creep, what's the song about?
Yeah,
and he just I think there was an MTV one of those back in the day, and Thom Yorke is just like, well, Creep is about. Yeah, it doesn't say anything else, and he just said, "That's it. That's the end of the interview." It's like he doesn't want to talk about it. No. It doesn't answer the question, and they just stop the tape. That's it. God. That's the end of it. The end of the interview, because he didn't want to talk about it. And to be fair, a bit of a silly question. What's the song about? So explicit in the lyrics. It's all there. We sometimes talk about interpreting songs. And when we talked about George Harrison, I said like how obvious the lyrics are, how like straight to the point, right? And every this time, is the same for me. That song needs no interpretation. It is what, in terms of lyrics, it is what it is. It's there, and exactly. I think especially in your teenage years, everyone has felt like that at some point in their lives. Yeah. So yeah, it's the way they performed the song live. If you check any live version of the song, especially when it was released, they already disliked it and they had to perform it live on every TV show. They make such a theatrical performance of it, and it's actually beautiful. It's like because it brings that feeling of being disliked or not liking yourself. Think about it. The lyrics about like, I don't like myself. I don't feel confident about the person here. I am. And it's like, I don't like this song. And I have to sing it in front of everyone. Like they're clearly uncomfortable with it, and they make a whole theater out of it. Yeah. And I love it. I think it's simply brilliant.
Well, talking about what they can do to again, we're gonna wrap up at the end with a bit of a section on their resentment for it and why that might have come about. But in terms of what they did at the time to show their hatred for it, we're going to talk about the music and that iconic guitar slash where you had Johnny Greenwood, who wanted to intentionally sabotage the song by putting that famous over it. He said he thought the song was far too soft, too nice, too whatever. So he wanted to ruin it. And he turned, I think it's quite significant here because he turned what could have been just an out and out sad, ballady, low energy song into something that with two strums of a guitar turns it way more aggressive, way more Britpoppy, way more punky. It just gives it that overdrive guitar sound, and it changes the song completely, don't you think?
Yeah, it does. It does, and it's the preparation for the chorus. We talk a lot about light and shade in music, and in this song, it's all so soft. And it doesn't gradually build up to the chorus. It explodes into the chorus. And that guitar noise, as Alan Partridge would say, that's just noise. So that's not really a chord. That noise it makes on the guitar before the chorus is the only bit of preparation to the loudness of the chorus. So everything else is just like soft all the way. And as I said, explodes into the chorus, really heavy. And then it goes down immediately as well.
Yeah.
And that's when the drummer does the cymbal thing, like just like creating like an ambience for the next part of the vocals. Like it's the way they play with dynamics is actually the contrast is shocking, really.
Yeah.
If I was listening to it on headphones, I had to bring the volume down for the chorus. I feel old now. Like,
yeah,
it's too loud, it's too old, as they say.
Turn it
but
down.
Like, it's like, oh my god, that's too loud. Because I was
Yeah.
listening to the details of the verse, so I put the volume up.
Yeah.
To hear the details of the bass and drums. I'm like, when it goes into the chorus, it's too much. And then I think the same kind of happens in the bridge after. You can't predict that bridge. But anyway, talking about that guitar part, I think it does show how much the guy disliked.
Like, imagine
I'm going to put a noise. Yeah, I'm going to completely destroy the arrangement, but actually he made it.
Made it better. Yeah. And again, as we know, that's the song that would go on to sort of to create their career and shape it. You wanted to talk a bit about the structure and the members, right?
Yeah. I think it's the role that each musician plays in that song. It's quite interesting. Well, later on we're gonna talk about where the song came from, isn't it, in terms of chords. But like when you listen to the verse, especially, the rhythm guitar plus bass and drums, they do the most obvious, predictable thing, just playing a really straightforward beat.
Yeah, isn't it great?
That's the foundation, because we're talking about, the song is a bit weird, this, that. Well, not entirely. You have that, like, that foundation with a really, how can I put it? Like, that's a standard way of playing pop music. You're just strumming the guitar, solid rhythm, nothing changes for the whole verse.
Yep.
And bass and drums, they do that job all the way to the end. When the guitar parts are still a bit weird, the vocals are like screaming and all that stuff. Bass and drums is just a straightforward groove. There's one drum fill halfway through that bridge. And it sounds like John Bonham's, like a triplet fill. Really, it sounds faster than the song because there's more notes per beat than you would expect.
Yeah.
But it's a really short drum fill. And is back to the groove, and that's how it goes. And the bass, there's nothing, how can I put it? It's nothing too clever about the bass, isn't it?
Not at all. Following the drum pattern, that's it.
That's it.
But I just think that's such a solid foundation for the song. And it's almost creates, because it doesn't ever really leave that rhythm, it just creates this almost psychedelic ambience around it, especially with that guitar being picked in the background.
Yeah.
And the effects they put on it. Radiohead are a band that have always given so much time and attention to the sound. I remember, my music teacher, when I was in studying GCSE and A-level at school, my music teacher was obsessed with them and he loved them. And I imagine he still does. And he was always just showing me these little intricacies of these songs. And I kind of listened to a song like, I don't know, they got a song called, I'm going to take a pause for this to just quickly explain to listeners and viewers our usual thing, where if you go down in the show notes or the YouTube description, you will see a playlist dedicated to this episode where we put every song that we've mentioned. If we're doing an album, all the songs from the album will be in there. Or if we're doing a song, the song will be in there, plus anything else we mentioned throughout the episode, including covers, like I'm doing now, little examples. So make sure you check that out to stay to listen along with us. And he played this song called Everything in Its Right Place by Radiohead, which is a stunning song, so soft, so haunting. And I just remember thinking, this is just a keyboard and a vocal, but he talked me through it. He was explaining the chords to me and how they worked. He was saying to me, listen to the production here, listen to what they've done there, listen to the resolution from this chord to this chord. And it just completely changed my view on music. So actually, I really need to give Radiohead a bit of credit in terms of how significantly they impacted my musical life, because I was listening to what I thought was pop music, but actually, I don't think they belong here. I don't think they belong. Sorry. Sorry, I saw that opportunity. I had to take it. Pun completely intended. I heard them, and once I understood, I think, sorry guys, you don't belong with Oasis and Blur. You belong higher. And again, I'm not in the mood to have a debate with anyone and say, oh, this band's better. It's all down to personal opinion. But in terms of the level of detail and musicality within their music, Sure, can Oasis write a better pop song? Yeah, fine, I'll give him that. But in terms of musicality, performance, production, Radiohead are on another level, man. And to hear even the simplest, their first ever song, I think the attention to detail is still on there as well.
All right. So when you think about it, isn't it that? So maybe Creep was definitely what shaped their career in a way, because the fact they tried to distance themselves from the song probably made them even more aware of details and how they could,
Not do that again.
Be more creative.
Yes,
well, how could they do something completely different? And I think, as I said to you, because you have that foundation of bass and drums just keeping the beat as it should be, which for me relates to rock and roll, actual like early rock and roll. Because when you listen to Fats Domino or Little Richard or Chuck Berry or Elvis, bass and drums are not there to shine.
No,
they're not there to be clever.
Yeah,
and it's all about the guitar player and the singer. So what happens with, or the piano player in some cases, in early rock and roll. So what happens with this song is that, like, because there's one element of the song that is not crazy at all. It's not like weird. So the other guys can be as weird as they want.
Yeah. But you know that's the foundation for bass and drums, and we did it. The last song episode we did, "Whole Lot of Love," which actually doesn't really apply to this, but on that album on Led Zeppelin 2, you've got a song like the Lemon Song, where you have John Paul Jones and John Bonham holding down that groove. Yes, John Paul Jones kind of goes off a bit, does a bit of a solo thing, but then that gives Jimmy Page and Robert Plant the space to do their weirdness stuff. So you're right. And once they establish a foundation in this song, as you said, you have the space for Thom Yorke's vocals to sort of soar. You know, there's a joke about Thom Yorke and his about some of his the way he sings. There's a song on OK Computer which is actually one of my favorite songs of all time, called "No Surprises," and it's so funny. The characteristic of Thom Yorke's voice is the slurring of the words. How sometimes, you know, people joke about Thom Yorke that, you know, because he just slurs words kind of together. He doesn't establish them, but that's his method. And I think if the drums and the bass were going to be extravagant and busy and playing much busier rhythms, Thom Yorke doesn't have the freedom to do that. Ed O'Brien doesn't, or was it Johnny Greenwood, doesn't have the freedom to do that guitar slash. It's because the bass and the drums have that established rhythm that it creates space for the rest of the band to do their thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting you touched the vocal performance there. Yeah, it's almost like he's drunk or he's just not in the mood to sing. It's like, I don't want to sing. And when I first heard the song, during the verse, I was like, gosh, this guy can't sing. Famous last words, right? Because when he hits the bridge and he shouts, and it's like, that's such a hard vocal to replicate live for any singer. It's not an easy one. It's like, I don't know about his vocal technique, but it sounds technically good enough to me.
Yeah, well,
It's not an easy one. It's a really high note and long and consistent. So the thing is, and he does it live, right? There's some really cool live versions of this song where he performs like with the same quality as the studio. And when I heard that, so wow, he can sing like that. Why is he not singing with that beautiful voice during the verse? But that's the whole point, because it wouldn't match the feeling of the lyrics.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
this guy feeling like he's not happy about himself. He doesn't like the person he is. He doesn't feel confident to talk to a woman he likes. And he's a creep.
Yeah.
It feels like a creep. He needs to sing like a creep.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think every person has felt like that at some point in their lives. I don't think anyone I know always felt entirely self-confident or is special, and it's, not for your whole life. There's always a point where you think like you don't belong and you're not as good as everyone else. And I think it's interesting that they put that in the lyrics, without how can I put it, like, without analogies or anything. It's just it is what it is. He says exactly as it is. So
and on top of that, as I said at the start, it so much more associates itself towards grunge than it does Britpop. Because we've done a few Britpop episodes now where we identified that Britpop was the UK was happy again. You know, like the Thatcher era had ended, the economy was booming, and it was like, you know, let's celebrate being British. But Radiohead,
they were not celebrating anything, were they?
No, not at all. And I know Britpop hadn't even reached its own heights back then. And but even so, looking at their subsequent albums, Radiohead, The Bends is slightly more Britpoppy, but there's still so much introspection in those albums, which is why I'm always hasten to anyone says to me, who's your favorite Britpop band? Blur, Oasis. I say Radiohead because that's how
great.
They are. Yeah,
that's great.
That's how they're categorized. But despite me trying to be clever with that answer, I don't think they're a Britpop band because I don't feel they've ever slotted into that maybe the Bends, maybe that one album, but you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. They have a sound of their own, and
completely.
There's one thing specifically about Creep, which I think it's brilliant because I was talking to, was playing a gig the other day, and this guy came to talk to the guitar player about. So basically, our guitar player got really angry because we had some music to be played during the break, so we put it through the speakers, like some country music and blues. And this guy put some money into the jukebox and started playing some Radiohead. And the guitar player hated it. Say, mate, we're trying to play some music here on the break that kind of suits the kind of gig we play. I was like, you played fucking Radiohead. And this guy said, but don't you like Radiohead? And they started this argument, like, not in a friendly way.
Yeah.
And he was joking with the guy, oh, this is really crap.
Yeah.
Come on, it's impossible that you like this. They're going on, and the guy says, oh, I love them. They're great. No, and then out of the blue, the guy says, come on, Creep is a great song. And then my friend was like, yeah, that's a great song.
There you go. There you go. So judged entirely on that song. I mean, I wish I liked Radiohead more than I do, and that's saying something because I have such profound respect for them. I love their. I spoke about this already 10 minutes ago. I love their attention to detail, how they view music. You know, some people, including myself, I'm a little adverse to relying on electronic sounds, sampled sounds, production methods to make music. I prefer my music made with instruments, but Radiohead just have this way of using those instruments in this repetitive, minimalistic way to produce great results that's then backed up by electronic sounds, ambient atmosphere. There's one song I put in the playlist. It's called Morning, Mr. Magpie. If you're interested in listening to Radiohead, go and check that song out. I think this song kind of epitomizes them and all that's good about them. Anyway, back to the discussion. Creep has defined this band, but it has not come without controversy because listeners noticed similarities to the song "The Air That I Breathe" by the Hollies. And what happened is Hammond and Hazelwood from the Hollies sued them for copyright infringement. Now, Radiohead didn't fight it. They settled straight away. And then from then, both writers have been given official songwriting credits on the song, which is why we had that little laugh at the start. But what do you think with regards to the plagiarism and the lawsuit?
That is an interesting one. Normally, a plagiarism accusation has come out of lyrics and melodies. Right? It may be a riff. Think about that. So we discussed a Whole Lotta Love the other day. That's so obvious. The lyrics are there, and and the melody at some point. So that's more kind of that would be harder to fight if you say that if you copied someone's lyrics and melody, that's clear plagiarism.
Yeah,
because that's what the song technically is, like legally. In most countries, I think. You can only sue. I might be wrong about this, but don't quote me on this. But I think you can only sue someone for plagiarism if it's about lyrics and melodies. So the instruments, the instrumental parts, they have to be really, really, really close to the original for you to actually sue someone for that. And this is a case that you can clearly tell. The acoustic guitar, the bass, and the drums at the beginning are playing the exact same beat. Chord progressions, we must say, you can't accuse someone of plagiarism for chord progressions because the chord progressions have been used in a million different songs since the beginning of times. Like you have since the beginning of times was a bit too much, isn't it? Since the beginnings of popular music, like the three chords in blues music, the 2-5-1 progression in jazz music, and you have all those things that have been used. They are kind of a commonplace. They're part of the genre, and you can find on YouTube loads of people doing jokes about like 4 chords, and you can sing like hundreds of songs on top of those 4 chords. So the chord progression is not the main reason for that. I believe is the combination of that chord progression with the guitar, with the bass, with the drum beat. It's like there's no way they were not listening to that song and playing on top of it. And you know what people do? They start jamming to someone else's music and say, oh, let's create something on top of this.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you fail to differentiate in the end. Like at the end of your recording process, you should find a way to distance yourself from the original track. You can copy someone's chord progression and the overall vibe of the song, and then you change the arrangements in a way that it doesn't sound like so actually it sounds like that was an inspiration, not a copy.
Yeah,
I believe the way they've done, specifically the thing we said that gives the foundation to the song, which is the groove, the rhythm, guitar, bass, and drums. For me, that's a copy. For me, it's very clear. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think this is a hard one because I'm of the opinion that they have made the songs sound different enough. Because I love both songs, but I hear them and I don't hear any similarities. And sorry, let me start again. Let me say that again. I hear the similarities, but as you said, for me, the difference. Okay, they've written the song, they've chosen their chord progression, but all the extra stuff they've put on for me makes it a completely different song. So it's hard, I'm reading here that there's a particular progression. So for the music nerds out there, a 1 to 3 to 4 to 6 chord progression.
Yeah, that's not very common, is it?
No, it's not. Usually you use 1, 4, 5, maybe 6 in there, maybe a 4, but a 1, 3, 4, 6. That's not a standard chord progression you hear. But then also I've read that the bridge incorporates a melody very similar to the Air That I Breathe song. So I mean, I think it says something that Radiohead didn't fight it. He wasn't happy, or they weren't happy. Thom Yorke said afterwards, when he asked about the song Creep and the writing credits, he said, well, it's not ours anymore. It belongs to someone else. And it's hard, man, because, where do you draw the line? We say this before in terms of, can a chord progression be taken? Well, you have the 4 chord song.
I think in the UK, as far as I'm concerned, the law is if you copy a part of the song, they're so essential to the song and so recognizable, then it is. But that's subjective, isn't it?
Exactly.
That is the point. Well, the point with plagiarism is like, I think lyrics and melodies, because they can be written down on a piece of paper. You can transcribe a melody using music notation, and if it's the same, it's the same. You can't deny that. But the same for how long as well, right? Is it like 1 bar, 2 bars of the song?
Yeah.
Or is it like a whole chorus? So I find the legal side of plagiarism, it's so debatable in many ways and so difficult. I don't have an opinion about this, I'll be honest with you. I'm just like sharing what I think about it, but it's not like a strong opinion. Like it's not I think, they should definitely be sued, or they should definitely share this exact percentage of the songwriting with the original writers. I don't know. So how do you measure that? How much of the song is a copy and how much money should go to the original writers? It's tricky, isn't it? Also, you do those things, like musicians do that because they see everyone doing it all the time. And you go back to, again, rock and roll, the early rock and roll stuff. If people were suing each other for plagiarism, I mean, everyone would be like credited in everyone else's music. Yeah,
exactly. So we said the same with Whole Lot of Love with classical music as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that, Lana Del Rey wrote a song called "Get Free" that Radiohead's.
I don't know that, though.
No, so it's in the playlist. Radiohead's publisher took legal action against Lana Del Rey for the same thing, for copying the chord progression of "Creep," which is ironic because it's kind of come full circle. From the Hollies to Radiohead, back around to Lana Del Rey. Radiohead.
But the Hollies are not making money out of 2 songs.
No,
apart from the original.
Well,
Are they not?
no, just Creep,
Oh.
I imagine.
But not the London Del Rey song, because if
let me see, I don't believe
that would be an interesting one, because see, that's what I'm saying. So confusing.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah,
So
because if their publishing company is suing them for copying Creep, but Creep already has the credit, is already credited to the Hollies. So how does that work? They probably make money out of that as well.
That's interesting. I'd love to look into that. Yeah, so Radiohead didn't sue her; it was EMI.
Okay, yeah.
But EMI are like, well, hold on, if this is our song, but that's funny. And yeah, like I said, Radiohead denied involvement in that. So my opinion, which is where I want to go into the next section of the episode, is that I want to ask, why do Radiohead hate this song? And I think we've got a few answers in the start of the episode, but my thinking is, I just look at all this stuff, right? After Pablo Honey was released, and Creep became famous, all of their gigs, you had fans begging them to play Creep. And there's one gig where Thom Yorke shouted, "Fuck off, we're not a jukebox," when they was asked to play. And then, by the time they got around to OK Computer, they actually flat out refused to play the song. They didn't want to play it. The media were calling Radiohead, the Creep band. And Thom Yorke saw the song as this shallow, overly emotional song that was really unrepresentative of the direction that the band wanted to pursue. And that goes back to what I was saying a few minutes ago about how each time I hear a new Radiohead album, it gets further and further away from Creep. It got so much so that Thom Yorke has called the song a ghost, always present, always watching. And I just find it interesting that, and listen, they did bring it back in the 2000s. They started bringing it back occasionally to this set. But I look at everything that happened. They didn't want to record the song. It was used as a studio warm-up. They were then judged completely on that song. Yes, it brought them success and fame, but they were judged on it. They were labeled as the Creep band because of that. And then it goes on and on and on, and that's not the direction they want to go on. Their whole image and identity is based around this song. And then to make matters worse, they get sued by a band for using the same chord progressions and a similar melody. And I'm sat there here thinking, no wonder they bloody hate this song, because it's brought them fame, success, and an image. But I don't know, man. I kind of understand it. Do you know what I mean?
I get it. I just find all of that funny in a way. Like it's yeah, you can't get away from something you've written, recorded, released, and promoted.
Their name's on it. You're right. They took responsibility for releasing it.
So it's your name is on it, and it's your art. And when artists normally say, I'm not having a go at them at all, because I think it's totally valid. If you're capable of having a following like they have, recording loads of different albums with different influences and sounds, and being capable of doing a gig, refusing to play that song, and still having people coming and buying tickets to see you, knowing that you're not going to play that song, that means a lot. That means they actually managed to outgrow the song, and I think they did. So that's the thing.
Yeah,
I respect them for that. I'm not having a go at them at all. What I'm saying is, you also can't deny that a song that you've written represents you. That doesn't represent me anymore. It represents that part, that time of your life, that time of that moment in your artistic life that you came up with some sort of lyrics and melodies to reflect your feelings. So that is you. You can't just deny that. Also, in a way, I'll be honest with you, I saw the Rolling Stones live playing for 2 million people in 2006 back in Brazil in Copacabana Beach. They started with Jumping Jack Flash. If I'm not wrong, they closed with Satisfaction. They were like, you know what, we're going to play the hits. They played some of this stuff in the middle. No one knew. They played out this stuff they liked. They wanted to play. But it's a sign of respect, depending on what sort of gig you're playing. There's a lot of people there that they're there to have fun, or it's a festival, whatever. If there's more than one band playing like a festival, they might know a few songs per band, and they want to sing along with the songs they know. I don't think any artist owes anything to the audience at all. You should do, as an artist, you should do whatever you do whatever you want to do. And if people don't want to buy it, that's on you as well. If they don't like it, so you can run the risk. I think they are in a position they can just say, I don't want to play it. But I kind of appreciate that at some point they brought the song back into the set list, because I think, people like the song, so why not playing for them? And why not sacrificing 4 minutes of your 2-hour performance to give people something that they like? Doesn't have to be done. As I say, why not doing it?
It's funny, isn't it? This whole song, this whole episode has been a bunch of, I can see this side, but I also see this side. We did it with the plagiarism. We're now doing it with, well, should they play it? Should they not? And I just like, this goes towards my respect this goes towards my respect for Radiohead, that they are so sure in themselves that they are just flat out saying, this is not us anymore, so I'm not going to play this song. And as you said, the fans have understood. The fans understand. My my old music teacher, he's seen them several times. And I asked him, when I was, because, I like a lot of their stuff. The Benz and OK Computer I really enjoy. And the albums afterwards, like I said, I wish I could like it more. But there's moments. And I'm thinking, what if they played the song, The Benz, Karma Police, Airbag.
Karma Police is great.
Yeah. And I look at their set list. Again, this is 15 years ago now. I was looking at the set list and I was like, why didn't they play Karma Police? Right, so they haven't played Creep. They didn't play Karma Police. They didn't play Airbag. What are they doing? Because I was of the opinion back then that a band has to play for the album, for the audience. And so it's just fascinating to see. And you might think that someone would be annoyed at Radiohead for that. But I think actually, as the years have gone on, the fans have come to understand what kind of band this is. And this is a band that makes the music they want to make. And because of that, they're going to play the music they want to play.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I'm going to quote someone who is definitely probably not a big fan of Radiohead. Noel Gallagher.
Okay.
He said something in an interview that is like really interesting. He said, like, people in the fashion industry, they don't ask anyone what they want. They're like, that's my job. I've studied for this. I've learned how to do this. I'm going to design your clothes. You're going to buy it. It's kind of like it's a strong attitude that they have in the fashion industry, but that's what it is. They design the clothes and they tell you what you're going to wear.
Yeah.
But if you don't want it, you can buy some. You can go to you can buy some like kind of old school stuff. You can still dress like in the 30s and 40s if you want to.
Yeah.
You can buy a hat. You can buy an old school kind of suit, and you can do that. It's fine.
Yeah.
But like the current fashion industry, they're like, we're doing this, and that's what we're going to put out. Whilst musicians are like asking the label, should I write this? Will people like this? Oh, this song is too long. Oh, there's no chorus in this song. So I think there's this really weak attitude from artists and labels about, we can't flirt with the idea of not pleasing the audience. But if you don't try to surprise them from time to time, everything's going to be the same all the time. And who would dare to imagine that a song like Creep would be a hit, a massive hit?
Yeah.
So, I think it should start from musicians to say, this is how I want to write my songs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put them out there. If people want to buy it, fine. Someone is going to buy it. Nowadays, it's so much easier to put music out there, And I think Radiohead was like that. That's why I really, really respect. If we didn't have songs like Creep, if we didn't have bands like Radiohead, music would be really boring. Either you like them or not, or the song. Either you like the song or not. You got to recognize that it's not the usual stuff you listen on the radio, and it played on the radio.
Bro, I don't think there's any better way to finish off with what you said. So we'll leave it there. Did you have anything else to say, actually, whilst you're on this roll?
No. I've got a lot of things to say about the books I'm reading and politics and the crash of the markets. But no.
We'll keep that until after this recording ends. Yeah. Excellent.
No, that's it there. I'm
Cool.
happy to end here.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts from, do us a favor, go onto our page and give us a review. It takes 20 seconds of your time to just scroll down, hit the 5 stars, write a little sentence about us. But honestly, it does the world of good for us, because the more reviews we get, the more good ones we get as well, the higher we climb up the charts and the more people we are seen and listened by. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit like and subscribe to stay up to date with all our content. We bring you one of these kind of episodes every week, be it an album or a song, and then we're also putting out a bunch of short videos as well. I've done one on Motorhead versus Judas Priest. You'll see Felipe's put one out on Jimmy Page as a session musician, and we're going to bring you those from time to time as well. So make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to date with that content. Thank you, and we'll see you very soon.
Yeah, thanks for being with us once again. And the 5 stars thing, I don't know how it goes. I think is a button that you click somewhere. I know the internet thing. Yeah, you click on it. So click on that thing. If you think we're worth 4.5 stars, just round it up. Give us 5.
There you go.
And thanks for being with us once again. Keep on rocking, everyone, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Thank you guys, and as usual, take care and long live rock and roll.